What is up, my friends? You are very welcome along to part one of our end of season player ratings video here on Anfield Agenda. The second part will follow in a day or two, but for now, we're going to mainly focus on the goalkeepers, the defenders, and some of the midfielders who've contributed to our campaign. I've gone through, given them all a score out of 10 based on what we've seen from them this season. Love you guys to let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Drop a like on the video if you enjoy it, which of course I hope you do. And also don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So I'm going to go through and start off with Alisson Becker. Seems a safe enough place to start. And as I said, we're going to get into some of the midfielders on this, but mainly it's going to be goalkeepers and defence, and part two will complete the rest of the squad. So let's start off with Mr. Alisson Becker. He was limited to just 28 Premier League appearances this season, and for a goalkeeper who has started to have a little few injuries creep in over the course of the last year or two, it's a little bit concerning, but not too much. Look, he is the best goalkeeper in the world, in my opinion, and had he played the whole season, I feel like this score would have been a little bit higher, but I still think I've given him a fair enough score based off what we've seen. Remember, himself and Caoimhin Kelleher basically split the season between them. So my rating for Mr. Alisson Becker is as follows. It is a score of 7 out of 10, and I want to know if you guys agree or disagree. Next up is Mr. Caoimhin Kelleher, who made 26 appearances for the Reds this campaign. Obviously, he was in between the sticks when we won the Carabao Cup as well. And look, he's shown for me to be a top-level goalkeeper, more than worthy of a starting berth, whether it be at Liverpool or elsewhere. Now, one thing that I hope doesn't happen this summer is that we lose either of these two gents, Alisson or Caoimhin. But I feel like we may lose at least one. If it's going to be one, then unfortunately it should probably be the younger Mr. Caoimhin Kelleher, because as I said a moment ago, Alisson in my opinion is the best goalkeeper in the world. But I have no qualms if Caoimhin decides this is the year that he needs to move on. I think he has more than shown that he's capable of being the number one for a top choice team. I think he never let us down. Yes, he will have made a mistake or two, but everybody will over the course of a campaign. Overall, I think Caoimhin's had a very, very good season. So for me, the score I'm going to give Mr. Kelleher is the exact same as Alisson, 7 out of 10. Again, would love to know if you agree or disagree. Next up on our list, my friends, is Trent Alexander-Arnold. And there's no doubting Trent's ability on the ball, but off the ball, he needs to improve. I think that's fair enough to say. Whether you're talking about his defensive work, or you're just talking about the shifts that he puts in at right back or in midfield, I do think he needs to up his work rate a little bit. 3 goals and 9 assists for Trent from 37 games is a little bit below what we would expect somebody of his talent. So in looking at it overall, bearing in mind he did have an injury as well, I felt like the score I've given Trent is more than fair. Now remember, this is just based off this season, not what I think of Trent as a footballer. So for me, I've got Trent a score of 6.5 out of 10. Again, I'd love to know if you agree or disagree. Next up is the man who came in to cover when Trent Alexander-Arnold was injured, and I think has announced himself on the stage. I think I'd like to see Conor Bradley be Liverpool's starting right back moving forward, and Trent moved into midfield, but he took his opportunity when he was given it. Obviously, he himself has had a couple of injury concerns as well this season, but I think he will save us a lot of money in the transfer market. I keep hearing people saying to me about the likes of Jeremy Frimpong and stuff. We don't need him. We have Conor Bradley at the club, and that's before we talk about Calvin Ramsey, who of course needs to up his game and get a full campaign under his belt without a season falling apart through injuries and whatnot. So Conor Bradley for me did more than enough to deserve the score I'm about to give him. You may think it's a little bit generous, but I think it's deserving for the breakthrough campaign he's had. I've given him a score of 8 out of 10. You might think it's generous, but for me to step up like he did, to come in and maybe even improve us defensively, let alone just cover Trent's position, I think he's been magnificent. So I think he's fully deserving of that score of 8 out of 10. Next up, Mr. Joe Gomez. Look, Joe's proven to be the ultimate utility player in our squad. His versatility has helped cover us many times this season when we've been, unfortunately, missing players through injury. The problem that I do have with Joe is there going to be a point where he nails down a position to be his own, or is he going to be our new James Milner? And if he is unable to nail down that one starting position, will his eyes start to wander? There's been a couple of little bits talking about whether he'd like to move on or not. And honestly, I could understand it as much as I wouldn't like it to happen. He's a manager's dream to have in and around the squad. And as I said, this season, his versatility has been a huge help to us throughout the campaign. So I've taken that into account when I've given Joe a score, and I've given him a score of 7.5 out of 10, which I think is fair. But of course, this is a democracy, so let me know what you guys think. Next up, we're going to go for our captain, Virgil van Dijk. And I've been reading lots of stuff from the Athletic, the Echo, fan forums, and trying to figure out how people think Virgil's campaign has gone. And I'm being pretty consistent to see that everybody is in agreement that he may not have had the most consistent of seasons, but he probably has had the most consistent of our players this season. He's shown that he still has a lot to offer. He's shown statistically that he's still up there with the best centre-backs, but I do feel he needs a strong presence alongside him. It's very easy at times, and I do this myself, to say he needs to be leading that defence, but he is only one man. There's only so much he can do. This season has definitely seen a return to form for Virgil van Dijk, so I feel more than comfortable in the score I've given him, which is 8.5 out of 10. And full disclosure, he is my player of the season for Liverpool, closely followed by a couple of others. But as I said, I think across the campaign, we've not had the most consistent performances from a lot of people, but Virg has always been there or thereabouts. So I think overall, he's deserving of my player of the season award, and that score of 8.5 out of 10. Next up is Jarell Quansah, and again, what a breakthrough campaign it's been for Jarell. Probably going to save the club a whole load of money in the transfer market. Even that being said though, I still would like somebody to come in, another centre-back who's ready to go. I don't really care what age they are, whether they're 18, 19, 23, as long as they're the right one. But the biggest compliment I can give Jarell Quansah is he always looked like he was meant to be there. Yes, he's made a couple of mistakes. Any young player will. I won't hold that against them. So for me, what score have I given Jarell for his breakthrough campaign? A score of 6.5 out of 10, which I think is fair. Remember, I don't want to be over the top in my praise of these guys either. I want to be fairly honest about what I've seen and the levels that they're playing at. So I think for a first campaign, 6.5 is a pretty good score for Mr. Quansah. Next up, my friends, is Joel Matip. And look, up until December, we'd seen the Joel that we know. Steady as she goes, decent enough campaign. But unfortunately, in December, that injury, that Liverpool career-ending injury, although thankfully not a career-ending injury for Joel just at the club. I think he will remain in the Premier League. There's been lots of talk about Southampton and others being interested, but I've also got to be honest in the score I've given him, which is based off just this season, remember, and it's a low score. It's 5 out of 10. I think that's fair, to be honest with you, because, you know, he did miss a lot of the campaign. Next up is Mr. Ibrahima Konate. This one's a little bit difficult because he started okay, and as the season went on, he had a couple of injury concerns, but I can't lie, he finished the season very poorly in my eyes, and could well be... He could have just pushed Liverpool even further into the market for a centre-back. If there were any doubts about whether we bring one in, I think his shaky end of season form and the injuries he's picked up makes me just ask one question. Can we rely on him to come in and play 30 Premier League games in a season? So far, he's not really shown that. But I've been more concerned about his form and the fact that Jurgen Klopp was willing to go with Jarell Quansah ahead of him when he was fit at the end of the campaign. So the score that I've given Ibu is 5.5. I think it's fair, to be honest with you. But again, let me know what you guys think. Next up, we move on to Andy Robertson. Oh, Andy. Look, again, lots of questions about his future at the club, whether we should bring in a young, hungry left-back to compete with him. My take is I would keep Robbo and I would sell Kostas Tsimikas. He's another one that had his season kind of curtailed with injury as well. But he did show good form to me towards the end of the campaign as he looked to get into a rhythm again. So my score for Andy Robertson is a 6 out of 10. Again, love to know in the comment section if you agree or disagree. 3 more to go on the first part of this video, my friends. And next up, we are going to be talking about his left-back colleague, Mr. Kostas Tsimikas. And I've got to say, I don't rate Kostas. I really like him, seems like a lovely fella, but I don't really rate him as a left-back. He's more of an auxiliary winger. When we're in trouble and we're chasing the game, bring him on to try and give us options on the left. But when he has to defend, he always seems rash to me. He always feels like he's trying to jumping ahead of the ball, which is great if he can win it. But if he can't win it, which happens quite a bit, we're turned and they get in behind us. So for me, I think it is time that Liverpool are honest with themselves in the market and look to move Kostas on. Just because I don't like a squad place being taken up by somebody who realistically is never going to break through and be that first choice. He's had long enough now with the club that I think it is the right time to move him on. So for me, I'd give Kostas a score of 5 out of 10. Again, let me know if you agree or disagree. Next up, my friends, is Mr. Wataru Endo. We've went from Moise Caicedo, an £150 million battle, to ended up with Stuttgart's defensive midfielder. But that doesn't tell the whole story. The impact that Wataru has had this season has been, well, it's been really good. It took him a little bit of time to get up to speed, but that's not unusual coming into the Premier League. And I think, again, one of the biggest compliments I can give Wataru is you see how good he is when he's not on the pitch. How many times towards the end of the campaign was he taken off and then we started to concede some soft goals? Whether his future remains at Liverpool or as a starter or not, or whether we bring somebody in, which I believe we will in midfield, I definitely think there's a place for him in and around the squad. He's more than proved his worth, and it looks like a very, very astute piece of business for the money we paid Stuttgart. So we've given Mr. Endo a score of 7 out of 10. And the last one for part 1, my friends, is Mr. Alexis McAllister. So as I said to you when we were speaking about Virgil van Dijk, lots of things that I read, those were the two that were pushing for player of the season, Alexis and Virgil. And I can absolutely understand if you like what Alexis has done this season, the versatility of being a holding midfielder, and then his more familiar position of a number 10 or of an attacking midfielder, if you'd like to call him that. Really showed what he's about. I didn't like him in the defensive midfield position, but I love that he was able to do it for the team, and Klopp could rely on him. So I think Alexis has had a fantastic season, and it was a difficult choice between him and Virgil. I went with Virgil for player of the season, but that isn't about the score. The score that I've given for Alexis is 8 out of 10. I think he's had a very, very good campaign. So, my friends, that is the end of part 1 of our Anfield Agenda end of season player ratings. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section, and don't worry, part 2 will be coming up very soon. Should be out in a day or two, so keep an eye out for that one. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Just a reminder, we are going to be in Belfast on Friday, May 31st, which is just a handful of days away now. 5 days until we're there. If you'd like to come and see us in Belfast or at Cardiff or Liverpool, you can see a link in the description that will get you to all of those tickets. And again, thank you so much for watching. Hope that you're having a lovely weekend as I record this, and I will catch up with you guys soon. Take care. Bye bye.